I tried investing in Section 8 for 100 days and I ended up becoming a multi-millionaire at 21. And I'm going to walk through exactly how that happened. When I first started, I knew absolutely nothing about Section 8 investing. And I can assure you, that thought process costed me thousands of dollars. During COVID a few years ago, I noticed something that most investors missed. Traditional real estate was bubbling up to insane prices, everybody saw that, but there were still affordable properties if you knew where to look. So I started hunting for the cheapest properties across America. And then came the breakthrough. A friend who was actually a Section 8 tenant mentioned this to me. They said the government pays the rent for them directly to the landlord. And this blew my mind and it was like a huge light bulb went off. So the start of the 100 days, I dove deep into Reddit, YouTube, BiggerPockets, really anywhere I could find people who had actually invested in Section 8 before. Because I realized the rent is guaranteed, as long as I passed the yearly inspections and played by the rules. The key was finding affordable properties that still had Section 8 demand, and that is what led me to Cleveland. So I mapped out a rough funding strategy. Use a DSCR loan, which is a debt service coverage ratio loan. A DSCR loan is basically a loan that does not require your W-2s, pay stubs, tax returns, etc. because again, I was a broke college student. The only thing they check is credit score, and they also make sure that the potential rental income of the home itself can cover the mortgage payment. Also needed 20% down, got a rehab budget ready, and kept some reserve. And again, at this point, I had never even visited the city of Cleveland before. I was literally making calls, forming connections, and building my team all virtually. I'm talking dozens of phone interviews before I thought I was ready for the next step. Within a few weeks of first learning and researching about Section 8, I found my first deal. It was a triplex listed at $115,000. It did need some light rehab, but it was almost there. It was pretty much livable. I formed an LLC, which is a limited liability company, aka a company that specifically is made to hold only this rental property. So if I get sued, they can't come after my personal assets. I also got pre-approved through a DSCR lender, who again didn't really care about my personal income and only checked bank statements. They really were just looking at the cash flow potential of the property itself. At this point, I also interviewed at least 5 different property managers, again, all through phone calls or Zoom, and eventually picked a property manager who dealt with mostly investors only, as well as Section 8 tenants. And at the same time, we did the home inspection on the triplex and revealed a lot of issues. However, we did end up getting $20,000 less on the purchase price because we noticed some water damage during the home inspection and we accepted that. We then virtually closed on the home. A notary came to my house. And right about now, we're at roughly 30 days into this process. So far, I had spent about $15,000 total on the rehab alone, not just the cosmetic stuff. About $5,000 went towards, painting walls, replacing some of the carpet, but the other $10,000 went towards fixing the water damage and active leaks. There were multiple leaks in the basement that had caused a little bit of rotten wood. The drywall obviously had to be replaced in a few places, and I believe the 3rd floor bathroom shower head just was constantly leaking. So we replaced the subflooring, resealed pipes, installed better ventilation systems in all 3 of the units. And big lesson learned here, always do a thorough home inspection. If we didn't, we would not have known about the water damage and would have had to pay that $10K out of pocket. Out for us, because we negotiated the price down like $20,000, but if I didn't do the home inspection, I would not have done that. Okay, going great so far, right? This journey was not without its challenges. The biggest hurdle easily was forming these connections when I was like a 14-hour drive away. I was trying to build a real estate portfolio in a city I had never visited in my life. Plus, I had no idea about the licenses and certificates needed to even invest in the area. Let me be completely honest with you. I made some expensive mistakes that could have been so easily avoided if I had, for example, someone guiding me. For example, I was missing a lead paint certification. Seems minor, right? Wrong. That missing certificate led to a 2-month delay in renting the property. I'm talking 60 days of paying mortgage, paying utilities with 0 income coming in. And because the property sat vacant past 30 days, that means my insurance was voided and someone broke in and stole the water heater and the furnace and broke a window. That single mistake costed me $10,000 to $15,000. I got the furnace replaced, got the water heater replaced, fixed the window, rescheduled the inspection, and this time I passed. Got the lead paint certification, and now finally, my property manager lists the units for rent through the local MLS and affordablehousing.com. From here, it was a lot smoother. Within a week, I had several applicants because we priced it super competitively. Section 8 waitlist in general is also years long sometimes, so demand was always through the roof. But just because I got a ton of applicants and the government's paying the rent, that doesn't mean I have to just avoid the screening process. Credit scores do matter a lot less, but references, behavior, criminal record, eviction history, and the interview process mattered a lot more. Once we picked the tenants, we signed leases, and within 10 days of passing the HUD inspection, I got my first direct deposit from the government. Before I continue the story, I want to invite you personally to join my free school community, where we have over 600 investors learning these exact strategies without making costly mistakes like I did. I host free live webinars every Monday and every Friday where I share the exact system I used to build my portfolio. Click the link in the description. Okay, so despite my mistakes, my numbers were still working out surprisingly well. Purchase price of $95,000, 20% down payment, which is $19K, closing costs of about $7,000, rehab costs of $15,000, and I like to call it the mistakes tax, which was around $10 to $15K. And of course, we financed this entire thing, like I mentioned earlier, with a DSCR loan, which looks at the property's income rather than my personal income. The property appraised for $130,000, which is $35,000 more than what we originally paid. All 3 units rented through Section 8 gave a grand total of $1,100 a month net before maintenance costs. After maintenance costs, around $700 a month net, which doesn't sound like a lot, but again, this home is $95,000. And by the way, I didn't spend that money. I followed a rule that I still stick to today. Don't touch the money. Every dollar gets reinvested into reserves, into funding the next down payment, into improving systems. I also didn't renew my property management contract because I wanted to save even more money. I wanted to save that 10%. And instead, I just used software to automate rent tracking and maintenance requests because I wanted to make this an actual passive income stream, an actual business, not another job. So by day 100, I wasn't just a new landlord. I had learned how to avoid expensive mistakes, vet tenants, deal with that bureaucratic red tape, and still come out cash flow positive. After day 100, everything became so much faster. I already had my systems in place. I did it right from the beginning. Rent was coming in like clockwork. Maintenance was being handled by my property manager, which I still had at the time. And I was not glued to my phone anymore. But instead of relaxing, I doubled down. By month 6, I had enough money for another down payment. This time it was a duplex in roughly the same area. And with every deal, I repeated the same blueprint. $80,000 properties, Section 8 tenants, DSCR loans. With 2 cash flowing properties, I now had $1,400 a month net, just constantly feeding my snowball. And I used that money to save even faster, qualify for even bigger loans, strengthen my business credit. Each new deal was easier than the last and quicker than the last because I wasn't starting from scratch over and over. I had a team, a lender, good realtors, good systems, and eventually I stopped using my actual W-2 job income entirely. That rental cash flow covered all future purchases. And I kept scaling, using DSCR lenders, using HUD tenants, all in affordable Midwestern markets. And now it was at this point that I ditched the property manager so I could keep that extra 10%. And now we are at $1.9 million in properties at 21 years old. But this all started with just one home. I learned more from those singular failures in home number 1 than I would have learned in months of research. Books and online free resources are valuable, but nothing compares to real world experience. Especially when it costs you $15,000, you don't forget those mistakes. And that's why I now mentor students who want to build their own Section 8 portfolios. I've created a step-by-step system that helps them avoid costly mistakes like I made, while still achieving the same or even better results. So my students are generating portfolios that make them $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 per month in guaranteed rental income without making those expensive errors that slowed me down. So if you're ready to start your first 100 days of Section 8, then you need to watch this completely free video before you begin. So check out this next video so that I can show you what you'll learn, how to get started, and how to use this information to go from $0 to over $1 million portfolio, just like I did. As always, I'm Joseph Khateri. Have a nice day.